So first, we're going to start with how our agricultural pollutants even wind up in Iowa's waterways and why we have some of the dirtiest waters in this nation. So our first speaker is Dr. Chris Jones. He's a retired research engineer from IIHR Hydroscience and Engineering at the University of Iowa. He's the former manager of the Iowa Water Quality Information System, IQIS, which provides very real-time monitoring and reporting on water quality data. So he's very aware of the impact that agriculture has on our waterways. He's also the author of the popular book and the very eye-opening book, The Swine Republic, Struggles with the Truth About Agriculture and Water Quality. He speaks all around the state. He's become a fearless advocate and has been for years, a fearless advocate for protecting our waterways and how agricultural practices need to change. So Chris, I'm really glad you're here tonight, and I want to welcome you to the stage. Let me go.
So thanks for coming tonight. Thanks for having me. As Diane said, I travel the state and it's winding down a little bit, but I've driven thousands of miles over the last many months, and it's good to just drive 2 miles. So, show you a few slides here and try to give you some idea of where the pollution's coming from in our streams and other drivers of what we see when we go out and we look at our streams.
Nobody can hear you on the webinar.
Oh, sorry. Yep, sorry. So I'm going to show you a few slides and we'll talk about where the pollution's coming from here. So there I am. I have a Substack if you're interested in it, where I write about these topics. There's my book, and so I invite you to check that out. And so I like to impress upon people that our water quality is intimately connected to the geological history here in Iowa. And of course, our geological history is one of glaciation. We think glaciers have intruded into Iowa 7 times in total, but 3 main glacial periods. The first one, the pre-Illinoisan period there from 2.5 million to 500,000 years ago. The Illinoisan period where ice edged into southeast Iowa there, 300,000 to 130,000 years ago. And then the Wisconsin Glacier, which came down into north central Iowa from Minnesota. And this is the one we talk about a lot, and which has really affected water quality, especially in north central Iowa. I think everybody knows prior to settlement, most of our land looked like this. We had about 20% of it in wetlands, about 70% in prairie, and about 5% in oak savanna. And of course, that's all gone now, we know. Here's Iowa vegetation around 1850. We can see a grassland over much of the state. We had some forest in northeast Iowa especially, and in the river bottoms. And then here's Iowa today, and we have crops covering about 70% of our land. And so we only have 2 species out there on 70% of our land. And so we know nature likes diversity, right? And we're not going to get the environmental outcomes that we want when we only have 2 species out there. The other thing we have here in Iowa that's kind of unique, over 97% of our land is in private hands. This is a very high number. It's the second highest number in the country. And so when we try to improve the condition of our environment, we're going to have to do it on private land. Prior to settlement, this is what our prairie streams looked like. They were clear water systems. They were also shallow. They spilled out into the floodplain very frequently. We had the perennial plants on the riverbanks. There, the prairie, we had the clean water species of smallmouth bass and pumpkin seed sunfish, the generalist species of channel catfish. And again, in the bottom of the streams, we had sands and gravels where the desirable species could spawn. And the important thing to remember here too is the water table was very close to the surface here in Iowa during pre-settlement times. Then we got here about the same time John Deere invented the steel plow. We broke the prairie. The other big thing is we drained the land and we modified the hydrology. And so it's not just what we're using on the land that's impairing the water, you know, the pesticides, the fertilizers, the herbicides. It's also that we've modified the hydrology so radically. And so one of the big things is we drained the land. You can see the lower left there, the guys putting in the old clay field tiles. That's in Boone County, west of Ames, around 1910. Those tile sections were put down with gaps in between each one to allow water to seep in. Then the water discharged out to these trapezoidal ditches that we built with the steam shovels. And so there you can see one of those in the upper right. That's over by Ames. And so we've lowered the water table 4 feet all over Iowa. That's had consequences for our water quality. We continue to tile now. This is a good time of year to go out and drive around and see farmers tiling. You see these big spools of black plastic tile pervious pipe out in the fields. That's a tile plow that's pulled behind a tractor. And so tile is the primary delivery mechanism for nitrate from farm fields to the stream network. Okay. And so the fertilizers applied to the fields, it's converted to nitrate. That's very water soluble. The water percolates down through the soil profile, hits the tiles 4 feet down and out to the stream. That's where the nitrate comes from. The other thing we've done is we've straightened our streams. This is a picture of a stream in Jasper County, the Neil Smith National Wildlife Refuge. The green line there is the stream in 1930. The red line is the stream now. So we've cut that stretch of stream down from 1,000 meters down to 500 meters. But the vertical drop from point A to point B is the same, right? And so what we've done is we've energized that water. It travels a shorter distance laterally, but it drops the same amount. Well, that's caused that stream to erode downward, all right? It's eroded downward, and this has happened all over Iowa. And so this is Walnut Creek. And so we can see here, these two pictures were taken from the same spot. That stream, this is no kidding, can go from the top picture to the bottom picture and back to the top picture in 24 hours. And so our pre-settlement streams were not flashy. So none of our desirable species evolved to live in this hydrological condition. The other thing to remember is in that top photo there, that black dirt that you see, about that first 6 feet of it was deposited since settlement. So it's what we call unconsolidated. When the water comes up, that soil material is very vulnerable to erosion. And so as a consequence, our streams are always muddy. And you can see the stream banks sloughing down there into the stream. So now our streams look like this. They're all down in these canyons, right? And so when you drive across the countryside and you drive across a bridge and you look down at the stream, if you didn't know any better, you'd think that might be the natural condition of the stream. It's not. They've eroded downward. Now we have the pollution tolerant species, the carp and bullhead. We still have the generalist species of channel catfish. The sands and gravels in the stream bottom are silted in, and the water table is much, much deeper now. And so that on the right, that's the South Skunk River, southeast of Ames. And so we've straightened thousands of miles of streams here in Iowa. The other thing we've done is we've lost all the diversity in our farms. This is a very famous illustration here from Iowa DNR when they did a pheasant study in the 70s. This is a farm in Winnebago County in northern Iowa in 1941. You can see we have a large diversity of land uses on this farm. Yes, we have a lot of corn, but we also have oats, hay, alfalfa. We have woodlots, we have marshes. And then we fast forward to 1976, and that farm has been converted almost completely to corn and soybean. There's still some oats left in 1976. Those would be gone in the present day. So now this is what our farms look like, right? We have the nice clean fields of GMO corn and soybeans, not a weed in them in a lot of cases. We have the hog industry. We have 25 million hogs. You can drive across Iowa and never see a hog, right? That's because they're all in these buildings up on the horizon. And then we have the ethanol industry. And this all looks really clean. If you drive across, I mean, you don't know any better, you would think, gosh, this looks clean, but we know that there's consequences. Then we have, all the animals here. We have 8,000 CAFOs in Iowa that have required a construction permit across the state. And so this has had consequences for our water quality. The two main ones, soil erosion and the nutrient pollution. And the thing nobody wants to talk about here in Iowa is we have a problem of scale, okay? We have 70% of our land in corn and soy. We have 11,000 square miles of our land that's used for ethanol, to grow corn for ethanol. So we have 99 counties. Imagine an area of land the size of 20 counties. That's how much we've committed to ethanol production. We have 25 million hogs. We still have a sizable beef industry, 80 million laying chickens. This is probably down to about 60 million now because of bird flu and other things. 5 million turkeys, 4 million broiler chickens, and 240,000 dairy cows. So we have a huge scale of production here. This is an intensity of production like nowhere else on earth. And so can we get the environmental outcomes that we want when we're producing at this scale? I would say no. This has had consequences for our drinking water, as Diana said. Thousands of private wells contaminated. 1/3 of our public water supplies are vulnerable to nitrate contamination, and 25% of all Iowans are drinking municipal water that has been treated for nitrate reduction. It's also had consequences for surface water, the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico, algae blooms in Lake Erie, a similar situation. The Gulf of Mexico algae mainly driven by nitrogen, the Lake Erie algae mainly driven by phosphorus. So what do we contribute? Well, Iowa has 3.3% of the land in the Missouri River Basin. We contribute 55% of the nitrate to the Missouri River from 3.3% of the land. We have 21% of the land in the upper Mississippi. We contribute 45% of the nitrate. And then down at the Gulf, we have 4.5% of the land. We contribute 29% of the nitrate and 15% of the phosphorus. So we are polluting at a continental scale. Okay, that's what you need to remember. What we're doing here is affecting water quality at the continental scale. Nitrate is our biggest problem for water quality. We have the nutrient strategy trying to address this. What's the economics of this? It costs a farmer 50 cents to buy a pound of nitrogen now. For the practices that are eligible for cost share through the nutrient strategy, it costs between $2 and $10 a pound to keep that out of the stream. So 50 cents to buy it, an average of $6 to keep it from entering the stream. How is that going to pencil out? It's not. So our average statewide nitrate load is 600 million pounds. We have a goal of a 45% reduction. That's 270 million pounds. So that's going to cost between 540 million and 2.7 billion per year just to address nitrate. We are never going to have enough money to address this in this strategy of providing cost share for BMPs. It's not going to happen. It's a fantasy. I talk a lot about ethanol. We see how land prices in Iowa have tracked in lockstep with the amount of ethanol produced in this country. There's a lot of young people that want to farm. They can't get into it because of the price of land. The calories from the corn that we use for ethanol exceed the caloric requirements of every person in the United States. Think about that. Ethanol also creates perversity around the country and agriculture around the country. We now grow corn in the high plains. We're depleting the Ogallala aquifer to irrigate that corn, and then we're sucking the Colorado River dry to irrigate alfalfa. Half of the Colorado River goes to irrigate alfalfa. That's a crop we could grow here without irrigation. Why don't we? It's because we've created a guaranteed market for corn with the renewable fuel standard and fuel ethanol. So what could we do? We need more diverse farming systems. This is Matt Liebman, retired from Iowa State. He spent his career studying these extended rotations. This one, corn, soy, oat, and then 2 years of alfalfa versus corn and soybeans. In the extended rotation, we reduce nitrogen fertilizer use 91%. We reduce herbicide 97%. The weed biomass is similar, even with the reduced herbicide use. Soybean health is better. Soil health is better. Tile nitrate is 57% lower in the extended rotation. Okay, remember the goal of the nutrient strategy, reduce it 45% at taxpayer expense. Here we reduce it 57% and it costs the taxpayer nothing. Soil erosion cut in half, fossil fuel use cut more than half, and the net returns to the farmer similar in the extended rotation. So why don't we do this, right? Why don't we do this? We need policy that helps farmers transition to these other systems. So ultimately, this is the question. What do we want the production system here to look like? Do we want a system designed for commerce, which is what we have? We have a system designed for commerce, or do we want a system that's designed for nutrition and environmental outcomes? So that's all my slides. Thanks for coming, and hopefully we'll talk later.